This episode, we're going to point to something that proves how harmful the industrial carbon tax and the taxes of the Liberal government are on our everyday, ordinary lives. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. This episode is probably going to be just a quick one. I got a little bit to say about an individual who I met that is actually suffering under the programs of Mark Carney, but doesn't even know who Mark Carney is when I said that's the name of the person. Before I get into that, though, I want to do some shout outs. All right, let's check it out. Before I begin the super thanks, I just want to remind everybody out there that I am up heavily against C11 and C18, both of which are censorship bills that the Liberal government has the ability to turn you down in the algorithm, to take you out of the trending feeds that the computer of YouTube in this example might be seeing. That's one of the ways that they limit my reach. They take me out of they turn me down, as the expression goes. And there are times when I look at it and I'm like, okay, this video is doing really well for the first hour. It'll go many thousands. And then all of a sudden it'll just stop. And you're like, okay, wait a second. And when you go and you have a look, you can see that it just completely fell right off. And at that point, somebody clicked the button, to say, oh, turn it down in the algorithm. So like, comment, share, and subscribe, but absolutely share this with all of your socials. It doesn't matter if they're, going to come at me. Just let them see it. Maybe we can save them from themselves. So let's dive into the super thanks. Annette Brooks, 2483, gave $10 and said, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Scott Nearim, 8844, gave $74.99, very generous, and said, thank you. I thank you right on back. P Rich P8C, $6.99, and said, thanks. I thank you. Richard Plume, 4426, gave $10 and said, thanks. I thank you as well. Tetsu Juin gave $50. Said they tried to hype the video. Now, for those of you that might be trying to hype, you have to you can only hype from your cell phone. Like if you're on your cell phone, you probably have the ability to hype my videos if they are, what are the conditions? Now I have to be under 500,000, between 500 and 500,000, or 5,000 and 500,000, something like that, of subscribers. And it can only be a week old. Like it has to be younger than a week. If it's older than that, then they won't allow you to hype it. And you have to do it from your mobile phone. But nonetheless, I say thank you very much, and I appreciate you trying to hype. 55 Sprinter, $25. I said thank you. I thank you very much. And as a Sprinter is a member, I appreciate the additional support and all of the support that you give me. Marjorie Kelly, 9744, gave $5 and said thanks, and I thank you very much right on back. So I have a little bit of a story to tell you. I was shopping the other day because I'm a one-man show, so I do my own shopping and I do my own cooking and all the rest of that. And I was talking to one of the cashiers or whatever they're called, who was commenting on how expensive everything is in Canada. And I was like, well, were you not from Canada? And the answer, of course, was no. She was from the Punjab and she was here trying to get an education. And I thought, oh, okay, so this person came in on the school program. And then I asked her, I said, so are you comfortable with the way that the government looks after you while you're on this school program? And she was like, well, I mean, I'm not here on the school program. I'm here on the temporary program, and my parents are paying for my school. And I said, oh, I see. So that's also a program looked after by Mark Carney. And she's like, who's that? And I thought to myself, are you serious? I said out loud, are you kidding? Like, are you serious? Do you really not know who the prime minister of the country is? And she was like, to this day, I believe that she was serious. And so I said to her, so this is the person who's giving you the hardship and costing us all this money for food. Of course, her first response was to say, oh, so you're against immigration. And I said, no, but I am against paying large international corporations that you work for that are worth billions and billions of dollars tax money to cover part of your wages, which is what happens in the temporary foreign workers program. Why do you think that these corporations go after it? Because they get a gigantic check off your tax money from the government for every single solitary temporary foreign worker hour that they have. Now, I didn't say that to her, but I did say to her that many people are upset about, not about immigration, but about the way that it's being handled and about how the temporary foreign workers program is taking money out of our pockets that we don't have, that we're already in debt. We're probably borrowing money to pay the temporary foreign workers. And so she was still kind of like looking at me kind of leery like. And then I said, because this individual was from the Punjab. And I said, so what you're telling me is that you would be okay paying the wages of somebody from Pakistan working in the Punjab. Now, if you don't know the region, you can understand that that was really not something that she would go for. And there's no way in the world that her eyes said anything different. She was ready right away to talk to me about how that is different somehow. And I said, so really we can see that it's not about where we are or who we look like. It is in fact about the government that we have. Your government back there where your family's from, they don't let that happen. And our government is taking tax dollars and not paying for your hard-earned labor as a farmer or this and that. You're paying a multinational corporation that is worth billions of dollars. They don't need the money. And yet here you are being exploited, and Canadian taxpayers are picking up the tab. We're actually helping them exploit you. Now, when I asked her who she supports, she didn't understand any of the politics. And then I asked her who she listens to, because I thought, maybe she listens to the CBC or something. And she's like indicating to me that I listen to most of the stuff from back home. And that's when the penny finally dropped. That many of these individuals are getting to this country not really understanding what the heck is going on inside of Canada with our politics, and they're just desperate and lost and lonely and struggling to survive and just basically trying to keep the wolves away from the door. So far from home that it probably feels like that in itself feels like something overwhelming. And I don't blame the individual for taking advantage of the program. I don't blame the individual for coming to Canada. I don't blame the individual for any of that. Like I told that person, I said, I do blame the Liberal government for bringing you in when you have no soft place to land. And I do not see the need to give multinational corporations that earn billions of dollars tax money to help pay for your wages. I get it, on small programs and small corporations and all small businesses. But for some reason, the government never gives money to those people. And as I wrapped it up with her, I said, it's funny because she was at work, right? So we can't have the conversation all day long. And she was a young girl. So whatever they are, when you're my age, they're all young, I suppose. She says to me, I said to her, so you have to start to pay attention to these kinds of things. After I was wrapping up, and she's like, well, I don't really pay attention to politics. And I was like, then you're not doing yourself any favor. And I realized, so here we have a quintessential shot where most of these individuals are coming to Canada. They're stuck back in their old country listening to the media from there, and they're not paying attention to the politics. Now, when anybody's ever said to me, I don't pay attention to politics, I always try to say the same thing. Politics pays attention to you. It doesn't matter how you feel about politics. Politics is absolutely in every aspect of your life, every single solitary facet, from the makeup you put on, from the clothes you wear, to the food you eat, to the building you live in. There's nothing to the amount of taxes that come off your check, where those taxes go. There's nothing in your life that is not impacted by politics. Absolutely nothing. And anybody who ignores politics is, I didn't say this to her, but in my opinion, between me and you, anybody who ignores politics is a fool. Anybody who ignores politics and trying to tell themselves that they know more about Kim Kardashian's life than they do about the moves of Mark Carney. Well, we kind of see why Canadians are up against it, because many of these people don't know any better. They simply come here and say, well, so now it's easy to scare, sorry, I get ahead of myself. It's easy to scare this person into voting for the Liberal, right? Oh, if you don't vote for the Liberal, they're going to kick you out of the country. It's easy now, right? Because they're not paying attention. They don't know what's going on. They don't appreciate the significance of all of the systems in Canada. So they get scared. And the next thing you know, the Liberal government gets another mandate because they've flooded the system with people who are not, invested in much beyond looking after their own butts. And who can blame them? All that to say, I think as Canadians, we need to get a little bit vocal when it comes to educating people who might not necessarily be paying attention to politics. Because these are the people that the liberal government and the far left exploit with fear and all of their tactics and all of the things and the words that they come out of their mouth. You and I know they're not true, but they say it anyway. And the individual, it turns out, doesn't know it's not true because they're just capitalizing on the fear that those people live in. Not the fear of every day, but the fear that all of these things that they're going through are somehow going to be ripped out from underneath them because they didn't cast their vote the way that the very government that is bringing these problems to their door scares them with. I think that, I don't know how to necessarily make it go en masse, but I do believe that it's something that we have to start to address in this country. We have to make everybody understand that paying attention to politics is something that matters because politics is paying attention to you. And if you come from a country that's not socialist, you should in no way, shape, or form be supporting socialism. If you're a capitalist, then you should be supporting the government that is a capitalist, the politicians that are capitalist, because it's better for your life and my life and everybody. Now, speaking of supporting capitalism and making sure that your government doesn't waste your tax money or overtax the companies that are in your country, I was out at the store the other day and I was buying some mushrooms because I like canned mushrooms and I needed some for some of the food I was making. And I noticed something, though I probably could have noticed it, a year ago. It just sort of slipped my attention, and I'll show it to you here. So I pulled up my phone and I made a quick video. It's like 30 seconds, or not even. It's like 5 seconds. You can see there that price, right? 127, 284 milliliters. Okay, great. Don't worry, it gets a little more stable. So right there, we can see that it's $1.27, and it's a product of China. Product of China. Mushrooms, pieces, and stems. Product of China. Then, right beside it right on the shelf, when I finally go over there, product of Canada, mushrooms, pieces, and stems, $1.67. $1.67. And it's made in Canada. It's packaged in Canada. It's produced in Canada. Well, why would it be 40 more cents sterling? What are you talking about? How it was the other stuff on sale? No, as a matter of fact, it was not on sale. And you would be amazed at how many mushrooms in this country come from China. I mean, it seems to me that we should be putting a tariff on Chinese mushrooms until they let go of the Chinese canola. Like if they really want to get down and dirty with it, we would be, probably hurting their industry quite substantially if we were to stop buying Chinese mushrooms and start buying Canadian mushrooms. However, that's not why I made this video. This video is to show you the impact of taxes. Now, I know your first impulse is to say, Sterling, we understand taxes are killing us. We get it. We hear Pierre Poilievre talk about it. We understand the basic mathematics. What I want you to see is these two products side by each, because one of them is a product of Canada, one of them is a product of China, which is on the other side of the earth. Imagine in your mind that we can do the same processes, right, to create these products, and then sail one, put it on a truck, drive it to the harbor, take it off the truck, put it on a boat, sail it quite literally halfway around the planet. I mean, think about how long it takes to fly to China. Can you imagine how long it takes to sail to China? Take it off in Vancouver, put it on a truck, then drive that truck to a warehouse, separate it all, separate it into different regions to wherever it's going, put it back on a truck, move it to those particular warehouses, take it off the truck, separate it down again, then take those particular individual cans and put them back on smaller trucks with smaller loads going to regional stores where they have now taken it off. And they can purchase it for less money than something grown in Canada, manufactured in Canada. Well, why? Well, because the taxes and because of the wages that they have to pay. There we can see how the Liberal government is not helping Canadian industry at all. They've got an industrial carbon tax on the amount of food, on how mushrooms are grown, because mushrooms are grown just like every plant life with a high carbon rich environment. They're grown inside of insulated buildings, and they got all kinds of texts and cha-ching, 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 cha-ching that the Liberal government puts on there. And then they say, oh, you don't have the ability to put in a temporary foreign worker, so you have to pay all those wages yourself. And the person that is selling the product says to themselves, well, that's as least as I can get. It's as low as I can get it. We're competing literally with people who won't accept any of our canola products across their borders. But we're taking food by what can only be described as billions of cans. I mean, everywhere I looked, I took a minute before I did it, and every store around me, all of their mushrooms, though the label is different, they all say the same thing: product of China. So if I extrapolate that across the country and think of how many cans are sitting on how many shelves across this country, I'm thinking, man, over the course of a year, that's got to be billions of cans. Even if it's millions, doesn't matter. It's a lot. And it's a lot that is putting Canadian mushroom growers, Canadian canning companies, Canadian label manufacturers out of work, Canadian truck drivers out of work. And China says, well, if you don't let us have our EVs, we're not going to buy your canola. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we just stop buying Chinese food made in China and we'll buy food made in Canada? I mean, if Mark Carney is serious about causing all of these things to happen, we have to be talking about things other than alcohol, like Doug Ford is talking about. We must be looking at the fact that there must be mushroom growing facilities in this country that can provide mushrooms less money. Of course, we have to take the carbon tax off there too, the Liberal government, so that we can bring it down to $1 a can. If we take out the Liberal government's taxes that they put on the Canadian manufacturer, but not on the Asian manufacturer, you say, because they don't have the authority to put that on the Asian manufacturer, and they don't put a tariff on it coming across. So it comes in at 40 cents a can cheaper, which is 33% less. Right? I mean, think about the idea that that's a lot, right? 40 cents is a 30% decrease in costs, in purchases. So we're not talking about, oh, it's a penny here or a penny there. If we were to extrapolate that over something to be $10 or $20, that's a big amount of money taking it right out of your pocket, going right into Mark Carney's pocket. All the while he helps the people in China who are harming our canola industry, who are harming our pork industry, or harming our fishing industry. So all of these are food. And yet when you turn left, right, and center, you see made in China on almost all the food, certainly on the mushrooms. Now, why is it the Liberal government can't come up with and say, hey, whoa, let's stop buying, let's start putting tariffs on Chinese food until they purchase our canola? I don't have to buy an electric vehicle. I don't have to put up with all of their critical minerals, undercutting the critical minerals in Canada. I don't want to put up with anything that the Chinese are doing that's going to undercut the market. Just like I don't want to put up with anything from any country anywhere that's going to undercut Canadian manufacturing in any way, shape, or form, Canadian growing in any way, shape, or form, Canadian business in any way, shape, or form. Like if they want to do business in Canada, then just like Donald Trump says, you need to put your factory inside of Canada. But we already have mushroom growers in this country who would love, I'm sure, to be able to get the productivity that the Chinese are permitted to get, because the Chinese don't have to worry about anything like, carbon tax on growing mushrooms, or the Chinese don't have to worry about anything at all. They bring it across the world, and it touches 4 or 5 transportation networks, and it's still 30% cheaper than the product grown inside of Canada. Does anybody think that sounds fair to the individuals that are growing the product in Canada, or the individuals that are trying to purchase the product in Canada? I mean, Mark Carney spent a whole 2 months going, oh, buy Canadian, buy Canadian. Yeah, well, you know what? Cut the taxes. No problem at all. Give me a product that I can afford to purchase. Give me a product that that our manufacturers can afford to compete with. I mean, I think it's time that we started to realize that I don't believe the Mark Carney's government is dealing with China at all. I think it seems to me that they may be trying to make Canadians get desperate, and then we'll be all of a sudden begging the Chinese to help us out. Well, I'll tell you right now, I will beg Donald Trump to help us before I beg the Chinese to help us. Because at least Donald Trump is going to offer me something that is going to be an improvement on my life. The Chinese, because I understand these things, Marxists in any way, shape, or form are not going to be improving my life. And we can see that clearly because we have a Marxist government now for nearly a dozen years, and they are putting taxes on Canadian manufactured products at a time when we are a quote unquote trade war, and they are allowing these people that are harming our canola industry and that are trying to attack our pork industry and that are attacking our fishing industry to flood our market with cheap food that does not have a carbon tax on it, all the while undercutting Canadian businesses. Does that sound like leadership to you, or does that sound like something that needs to be addressed and doesn't make any sense? To me, it doesn't make any sense, and I think that it's just a small example of a system-wide problem that we as Canadians need to understand. The Conservatives have been telling us about for years, and we need to do something about it.
We need to make sure that our government, our current government, understands that this is not something, no matter what political stripe we follow, we are going to accept. Because not only are we buying food at a 30% increase over what it can come across the world on, but we're helping people that are actually that are actually trying to harm this country. That's just my opinion. You can let me know what your opinion is down in the comments. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.